Module 1, Part 5, continuing with our important terms. We've covered 4. We have a handful left. First up here in this module is polytheism, a belief in many gods, as you can see from the graphic. So technically, if you have 2 or more gods, for example, even dualism, in which you have simply 2 gods, be considered a polytheistic religion. As far as the world religions that we'll be studying in this class, perhaps the only one that I guess most scholars would technically label as polytheistic would be Shintoism, with the various kami, or some natural spirits and forces and so forth that they recognize in the religion. Other than that, you have to go back to historical religions, Greek religions, Roman religions, Norse religions, etc., Egyptian religions, to find truly polytheistic religions. And by the way, Hinduism is not, although it may appear to be, a polytheistic religion, as you'll see here with this next graphic, monism, because in fact Hinduism is probably the quintessential textbook example of monism, as it says here in the graphic. And now we're talking strictly about the religious definition of monism here. In a purely philosophical sense, it can mean some other things, and it refers to the idea that even though you may appear to have lots of different gods, lots of different spirits, etc., there's still only one true spiritual reality, one eternal spiritual reality from which all other things derive. As I said, Hinduism is the perfect example of this, because in Hinduism you have the Brahman, Brahman, you see it spelled there on the graphic, which is the supreme high spiritual reality of Hinduism. It is the only eternal thing, the only truly permanent existing thing. And all of the various gods you see with the different arms and even the different genders and the many heads, the different colors, etc., and we'll be covering those in our first unit when we start moving to the religions on Hinduism. These are all manifestations of the one true God, Brahman. Deism. Deism actually became popular in the 17th and 18th centuries when people began to think rationally and empirically about the universe, and they couldn't quite buy into the very sort of narrow, sectarian, dogmatic view of the universe that had been propounded by religion. But yet, on the other hand, they didn't feel comfortable about totally scrapping the idea of God. And I guess I'm putting it a little bit bluntly, but nevertheless it's how I see it. So it's sort of a middle position. You actually do believe in God, and you believe God is the creator of the universe, and that in fact that he even endowed humans with the ability to think. But nevertheless, you don't need to resort to God and supernatural forces and the actions of God, etc., to understand what's going on in the universe. All natural events and processes can be described by resorting to natural material things that are going on in the universe. It's thought that many of the founding fathers were probably deists because of the European influence. Next we have naturalism. Naturalism would be pretty much a mindset that would characterize a typical scientist, regardless of whether or not that scientist is religious. As you can see from the graphic, naturalism is the notion that strictly natural principles, forces, and entities are the cause of all events and processes in the universe. So, for example, when a good scientist has his scientific hat on, he relies on observation and testing and the rule of falsifiability and empiricism, etc., to understand everything that's happening in the universe. He or she does not need to resort to supernatural spirits and gods and things of that nature. And so that is naturalism, and it does not necessarily presuppose atheism, although an atheist can certainly be a naturalist. But for naturalism to hold, the individual simply has to believe that he or she can understand the material universe by attributing those activities and events to things that are also natural. And then finally, materialism. As you can see from the graphic, the belief that all things in the universe are comprised of only matter and energy, or put another way, the physical, tangible world is all that exists. So here we are going a step beyond naturalism, so to speak. Whereas a naturalist embraces the idea that we need not go further than natural events and processes to understand the world, the materialist, of course, starts there, but the materialist goes further and actually claims that there is actually nothing else. Nothing else exists other than these natural processes that we see around us. The physical, tangible world is it. That is the sum total of all existence. There is nothing beyond that. And now in this case, materialism does logically presuppose atheism. A materialist is necessarily an atheist, just by definition. There is simply no room for a God, conceptually, in a materialistic universe. Now, the converse is not necessarily true. An atheist does not necessarily have to be a materialist. It is quite possible, for example, for someone to believe in supernatural realms, preternatural dimensions, etc., and just not believe that there is a God in those things. Just one note about materialism. People often see materialism in very bleak terms because many people prefer to embrace some sort of meaning and purpose in the universe. And any ideology that rejects that notion is summarily dismissed, almost in a knee-jerk fashion. However, the materialist simply claims that if you're going to find meaning and purpose in the universe, you're going to find it on your own terms. So it's not necessarily true that a materialist believes there is no meaning and purpose. There's not the sort of meaning and purpose that a, for example, fundamentalist believer might embrace. But nevertheless, they do find their own meaning and purpose in the universe.